Welcome back. Most Canadian investors remember the legalization of cannabis back in 2018. It ushered in great hopes, and it led to what is now clearly recognized as a bubble in many of those stocks. There were high-flying stocks, aplenty during the peak of the cannabis mania in this country. Almost all of them cratered into penny stock status in years since, costing some investors billions of dollars. We're joined now by an author who has written the history of the legalization of cannabis in this country. He argues that there are lasting economic benefits in the industry. Ben Kaplan, you can see, has joined us in the studio. He's the author of Catch a Fire, The Blaze and Bust of the Canadian Cannabis Industry. It's going to be released on July 14th by Dundurn Press, and there you see a copy of January 14th, by Dundurn Press. There you see the cover. Thanks, Ben, for coming in.
Appreciate it.
Where do we start in this story? For us, it began with the news that the federal government was going to do this, and companies were getting ready, and we broadcast, I think, the lighting of the first legal joint in St. John's, Newfoundland, on that day.
Right.
And investors couldn't get enough of these stocks in the early going.
Well, what I argued yesterday in the Globe is that despite all of the money that was lost in the market, and you're talking about a tune of $131 billion, okay? But that wasn't necessarily related to legalization. That was the stock markets and the promoters and the pump and dump stocks. So that was market manipulation by capitalists, as we always see. But that's not necessarily reflective of the policy behind legalization and how Canadian policy responded.
Tell us more about that. Do you regard these as pump and dumps?
Well, yeah.
I mean, there were some pretty big companies involved in that. Canopy Growth became a very, very large company at its peak, and there were others as well, Aurora and so on.
For sure, but a lot of that also was based on forecasting. Before we knew how big the market was, we could say the sky is the limit. Mm-hmm. And there was lots of big money, Constellation Brands, the maker of Corona, willing to put $5 billion basically behind.
Which it now deeply regrets, that investment.
But at the time, cannabis could be seen that, alcohol was running for its life, tobacco was running for its life, because cannabis was going to replace everything. And it wasn't just the CEOs of these startups saying it, it was Deloitte. So, it was earmarked that, Chardonnay moms were going to come in and they were going to drink their weed instead of White Claw. All of these things didn't come to pass, but you could see on the decks how it could have, it just didn't.
What's the state of the industry now? If we leave aside the abysmal performance of the stocks, what does the industry look like now? I
mean, I tell you, Organigram is up 25% over the summer, and that was before they just purchased Motif Brand. So Organigram and Beena Goldberg, their CEO, was a big comer. She's been in it forever. Canara's had 16 straight positive quarters of EBITDA. And High Tide, he says he's the biggest retailer. They're based in Calgary. They have like 185 stores, and they think they can do $1 billion in revenue domestically based off weed. So I think the industry is right-sizing, and a lot of the bad players have been taken out.
You believe these claims, do you? Because we've heard these before, obviously, these growth claims.
Well, I do. I don't say it's universal, but I think these people are tried and tested. If you're still in it now, and you've like Beena Goldberg, the CEO of Organigram, she's been around. She was at Supreme when it was valued of $1 billion, and now they're a penny stock. But that's not to say that they haven't learned from the past and they're right-sizing now.
Seems to me one of the big challenges the industry faces is that they cannot advertise, and that makes it very difficult. One expert says to build a brand, to say our stuff, Marley's Buds, whatever you might go, is a better marijuana product than the others. I mean, very difficult to build brands.
I love that comment, and that's like, especially when you think about who's not buying the weed, it's still like 80% of the weed is bought by 10% of the people who are weed smokers. They didn't come to legalization. We never got weed. The industry never really got the soccer moms. And despite building out these stores to look like Apple stores, the majority of people that don't consume cannabis prior to legalization still don't now. So they have no clue that these places look like Apple stores because they just never go in there regardless.
Right. On the subject of the retail locations, this city is populated with cannabis stores. I assume most Canadians cities are, and many small towns that I travel to, every little small town has got a cannabis shop as well. Are we going to see that the number of cannabis shops come down as this industry advances? Are we going to see a rationalization here?
It's what we're seeing now too. I mean, it's been taking place. It's taking place now. We're going to continue to see it. I think ultimately we're going to end up with, and you see it the way we have now in Toronto and Ontario, beer and wine at the grocery stores. There's a world in which at Whole Foods you can get CBD products and things like that, or at Shoppers Drug Mart and things like that. When you see the distribution,
you think that's possible?
I don't think it's possible. I think it's definite. It's just a matter of when and which companies can survive between now and then. But ultimately, there's no reason that this legal product, the same as alcohol, can't be dispersed the same way. It's the same thing.
Do you have a fix on what has happened to the illegal marijuana industry? One of the great hopes was here is that the illegal sector would be, if not wiped out, at least seriously reduced. And I've heard reports over the years that that's not really the case. So those guys are still thriving.
It's serious. It's two things at once, right? It is seriously reduced, but it's also still massive. I mean, and you see that these things are so hard to regulate, and you can see it with psychedelics, how the mushroom stores popped up out of nowhere. And it's like, if you didn't know better, you would think it's legal because they make no bones to hide what they're doing. So you wouldn't even know it's wrong, but it is reduced, and it continues to be reduced, yet it still is around.
Where do the numbers come from on the illegal market? Do the police provide those numbers?
They do, and it's been going down, the illicit market, but it's still, I would say it's upwards of 40% of cannabis consumed in this country is consumed from illegal wares.
We'll have to leave it there. Ben, thanks a lot. Congratulations on the book. We'll show viewers one more time a cover of the book, Catch a Fire, The Blaze and Bust of the Canadian Cannabis Sector, written by Ben Kaplan, due out on January 14th by Dundurn Press.